Hey, let's sit down. We're gonna get started. We have a full agenda tonight. Our chairman, Cedric, is not here tonight, so you're fortunate enough to have me. You're right.
Already?
Oh, yeah, he got out of here, I'm sure.
Yeah, Jackie, we have a quorum,
Yes, we do.
and we did.
Yes, kid. Whatever you need. That's great.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a confirmed posting in the agenda.
Yes, we do. I know it.
Announcements of any changes.
No changes to the agenda.
Okay.
Rodney, we can't hear you at all down here.
All right, we're gonna go to public comment, and unfortunately, because we're so jam-packed with agenda tonight, we're only allowing 2 minutes under public comment. So try to be as brief as possible and get to your point. And we'll start with we're gonna start with Brenda Keith. Or I'm sorry, Brandy Keith. My fault.
Thank you. I'm Brandy Keith with the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and I just had two quick announcements to share with everyone. So first is that we now have a date and our nominations for our annual Clean Air Awards. So the nominations are now open, as I said, through January 19th of 2024. So we've been doing these for over 3 decades, and we honor all those across the region who have helped to improve the air we breathe. This year's event will be next year's event will be in April of 2024. It'll be the 34th annual Clean Air Awards event, and the theme this year is Inspiring Equitable Clean Air Future. So I will go ahead and hand these out. These are save the dates, and it also has the link where if you would like to nominate someone for one of the Clean Air Awards, you can submit that nomination. Once again, nominations will be open until January 19th. And my second announcement is that the Communities in Charge in association with CalSTART has made 38 million available in funding for level 2 electric vehicle chargers. They'll be launching a new funding wave in Q4 of this year. So we're currently in that. And the deadline to apply is December 22nd. So that's coming up pretty quickly. If anyone would like the link, I'd be happy to give that to you. So the base incentive is up to $3,500 or 75% of eligible cost for the installation of EV level 2 charging infrastructure. And those are my announcements.
Thank you, Brandy. Appreciate you. Lucas Simmons. No, Lucas. Okay, so we'll move on to Nikki. Nikki? Nikki? Go ahead. You're on.
Standing up here. Hi, I'm Nikki Mitchell. We're Redondo Beach, right away stakeholder. And the people I wanted to thank are not here right now. I wanted to thank Holly Mitchell for coming. She'll be okay, good. I also wanted to thank Aurelia Matucci for speaking up last month at the Board of Directors meeting. It was great to have another angle brought to this discussion, and we share his concerns on safety. Also thanking him for seeing and pointing out that the right-of-way route is very flawed, and we understand he's not fighting us. And we want him to understand that we're not fighting him either. What we're fighting is the terrible idea of using that century-and-a-half-old fuel freight corridor, which does not equate with the best option for commuter passenger routes. So right-of-way served its time, and we need to realize it's come to its extinction date, especially if we're serious about cutting back on fossil fuels, since that's the freight that's being moved through there. So, that would free up the corridor to complete the multimodal dream for a greenbelt bikeway walking path. So I also wanted to thank Aurelia for neutralizing Torrance's bullying dynamic for more than a dozen years for the stakeholders, and we appreciate him for that. There's been buzz on the internet that the Hawthorne elevated option for the sea line is a project killer. No one of any authority actually said that. We've been citing the $2.9 billion cost estimate as somehow being out of reach. But now that the LPA for the East Side Transit Corridor Phase 2 got approved for 7.9 billion for virtually the same length of rail, 2.9 billion actually sounds like a great deal. The fear mongering about the cost difference between the right of way and Hawthorne Elevated, since a 4.6 mile light rail connected through Montebello was just approved for that whopping 7.9 billion. The 4.5 mile Hawthorne Elevated is estimated at a comparison of only 2.9 billion. So that's $5 billion difference.
Go ahead and-
Nice things.
And finish your thoughts, Nikki.
Okay.
Thank you. Chelsea?
Hey everybody, I'm Chelsea. You guys have seen me on there all the time. I wanted to introduce you guys to my family. Juno, Jackson, and my husband John. We haven't been able to come in person before. And I just want to talk to the COG and just say, this is the future. We want public transportation. We just want it in a sensible way. We want it down Hawthorne Boulevards. I've been talking to the school board. I've been talking to teachers. I emailed all the school board members in Lawndale today, all the principals, and I've gotten 8 emails back from people who said they've never heard of this project. So the community support or the community meeting is great, and we're gonna blast the heck out of it, but the community needs to know more about this. And you guys, as leaders in your own community, need to talk about it. You need to talk about it. You need to discuss it. You need to share it with your community, tell them what's going on so that they can make the decision. I personally want the Hawthorne Boulevard option. I talk to neighbors every single day. I tell them what's going on. I give them impartial information. I tell them, this is what I want, but this is the other option. And there's people who have never heard about what's going on still. I walk the road. I walk literally around the row every single day. There's people who still don't know what's going on. So as leaders in your community, you need to stand up for us. You need to stand up for these guys. You need to stand up for my family. You need to make a decision. You need to make a decision that's right for everybody. And that, I think that option is Hawthorne, but I just think people need to know about it. That's the most important thing. People need to know about what's going on, because as somebody who walks it every day and talks to everybody, I talk to probably 5 people a day who say what's going on, or the other option, or the other thing people say is Metro's going to do what they want. We don't have a choice. We don't get a say in the matter. So please, please, please be the voices for these people. Please make a decision. Please discuss it. Please share it with your community. Share it among your constituents, your coworkers, anybody and everybody. People in Lawndale live adjacent to the road. I talked to one person today, finally knocked on the door.
Chelsea?
He didn't know what was going on.
Thank you, Chelsea, for bringing your family, and thank you for your comments.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Jeanette?
Hi, my name is Jeanette Kurth. I'm a property owner next to the road in District 3. My family have lived at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac on Fifth Court in Redondo Beach next to the road for over 45 years. The existing freight track is elevated over 20 feet above our property. That is right there. See how high it is, okay? Metro is planning to rebuild the existing freight line 12 to 15 feet closer to our property lines along the road to accommodate the 2 light rail lines on the east side of the track, and it is unsafe. The likelihood of a derailment of the BNS freight line hauling 45 tankers filled with 31,000 gallons of pressurized liquefied gas along a 20-foot elevation feet from our property lines without supporting wall is a disaster in the making. If these tankers were to derail on top of our properties, no one would survive for blocks away. Approximately 30 years ago, the tracks were reinforced with added tons of soil to create a berm enhancement on the west side where the tracks curved. So obviously the tracks were unstable back then, and they were concerned with possible derailments. It has already happened. On January 12th in 2017, this very train derailed in El Segundo after extensive rain. The train was coming from a nearby Chevron oil field refinery. The tracks were at grade, not elevated, and derailed. Several tankers derailed near Chapman Way and Douglas Street. That is the derailment in 2017. Nowhere along the sea line has Metro ran their elevated tracks through a residential area. It has only gone through commercial and industrial areas. Hawthorne Elevated is the obvious choice, only 2 blocks away. Please stop this short-sighted and ill-conceived decision and build the green line elevated down the center green space of an 8-lane Hawthorne Boulevard. The original red car line, it is safe, it is elevated throughout the entire alignment. It costs a little more, but it will be there for 100 years plus.
Thank you, Jen. Your time's up. Kevin,
And ridership will increase.
thank you. Kevin?
Hi, COG members. Kevin Mitchell, Redondo Beach resident. Yesterday at Metro's Planning and Programming Committee meeting, the 2024 SCAG draft was presented. A portion of the report described how Metro trains serve as an engine of economic growth. It described how they are not merely conduits of transportation to employment, but rather serve to create an echelon of employment opportunity when incorporated into city and county planning. There's been a discussion about how businesses will suffer if a train is constructed on Hawthorne. Metro provides some financial mitigation for these factors, but a wider lens to the South Bay needs to be applied. In El Segundo on Nash, on the sea line, the Chargers are building their new facilities. The Kings and the Lakers are both in close proximity. Around each of these entities, entire ecosystems are emerging. Hawthorne Boulevard has a chance to transform itself and become wildly successful. Whether access to beach life and sporting events and an arm's reach to downtown LA or the West Side. A new business landscape can emerge that caters to the wealth stream that surrounds professional sports franchises and their events. Hotel amenities like those planned for the South Bay Social District can flourish if they can directly tie to both the LAX and sport venues like SoFi and adjacent arenas. The K-line expansion down Hawthorne Boulevard can provide that. Advocates of the Metro Road train have said that the Hawthorne option is a project killer. We think it could be a killer project.
Thank you, Kevin. Pauline?
Pauline Villegas, right-of-way homeowner. So the residents have described the serious concerns we have with the right-of-way alignment for the Metro Sea Line extension. There are concerns with safety, soil conditions, part of the right-of-way being too narrow to accommodate 2 light rails and a freight train, along with multiple fuel lines. The elimination of the neighborhood's only green space and the potential for structural damage and health problems caused by the significant and unavoidable noise and vibration as stated in the draft EIR. These things would impair the quality of life for the more than 1,650 families living along the road. We believe the solution is to put the Metro elevated down Hawthorne Boulevard. This is an important 100-year project, so it needs to be well planned for the future of the South Bay. Putting the Metro through the commercial corridor where it has the potential to increase ridership and revenue for the area makes the most sense. It's important to put our public transportation in areas where it will be utilized while still preserving the character and integrity of our neighborhoods and green space. This should be the futuristic vision for the South Bay. So I would like to urge you to stand with us and the cities of Lawndale and Redondo Beach in supporting the Hawthorne Boulevard elevated alignment for the Metro Sea Line. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Holly? Holly Osborne?
Okay, Holly Osborne from Redondo Beach. I started this figure last time and I Supervisor, I sent you a whole lot more figures, but I'm only gonna go through one.
Okay.
And really fast, okay? So this is the embankment, okay? This is the part you can't see if you just drive by 170th. Metro doesn't let you see it. But when you heard about a pipeline anomaly, and there's 4 pipelines in a row, and it's the green one, they're going into the page, and they're under this guy's patio, and the green one was the one that had the anomaly. And Torrance Logistics got it fixed. They had to dig about a 6 feet deep hole, and they restored the patio, and they restored the fence, and they did a really, really good job. But we had actually found out that Metro wanted the guy to tear everything down at his own expense. But that's not, we trust that you are not going to promote that line of thinking, okay? And we also found out, we're going through old maps, that this actually used to be a road. Condon Avenue was up there. That's how come this was paved. It was a street. The people who dug deep said, hey, this is so thick concrete, this used to be a street. Duh. He's been there for over 50 years. He remembers when he was a street. I'm done.
How about how? Thank you, Ollie. Ray Holler. Ray?
I'm Ray Holler, homeowner in Lawndale and retired aerospace engineer. I've got a 3-minute speech here, so I got to cut it back some. This is from this set of schedules is from the August 14th memo from the Green Line team to the board of directors. It's got the 4 different train paths here, and the summary is that the road path is defective due to noise and interfering with emergency vehicle transportation. So they've bid the hybrid row over here. That means you trench over a couple of overpasses. And so I'll bypass the parts where I to say what's wrong with that. Lots of things that are wrong with that August 14th memo that I talked about in the steering committee, and get to the gist of the thing is that I've said some of this before, where based on information inside the draft EIR, the physical construction costs for both the hybrid row and the Hawthorne Boulevard path are the same. And then, so you're left with differences of over here for design. You got this Caltrans part, so I added something in for Caltrans, 2 Green Line, the EIR teams, and I added something for inflation, so I end up with a cost that's 14% higher than for hybrid row. And for that 14% extra cost, you get 35% higher ridership. These are all Metro numbers. Okay, so now I'm going to say something new. That's $400 million different there, and I don't know where to put that. And so what does that mean? A senior transportation engineer with 50% top pay, 50% benefits, and 100% overhead. That's about $400,000 a year. I'm sure that's too high, but let's roll with that. So that would mean that $400 million, 1,000 years of senior transportation engineering labor. A millennium of labor. I don't know where to put a millennium of labor here. It's not over here because the DEIR covers that. So it's got to be over here. Well, or it isn't. And where would I put it?
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Matthew?
Yeah, good evening. I'm Matt Lewis. I'm from North Redondo. It's a pleasure to meet you, supervisors. I'm here to support the Hawthorne route for the Sea Line extension because I'm a policy researcher by trade. And I became concerned about how the decision was being made when I went to one of the draft EIR meetings back in February. Met a very nice guy, one of the consultants for Metro, an engineer, saying, hey, it's a no-brainer because we, the Metro, already own the right-of-way and it's cheaper. And I'm a policy researcher. That's the sunk cost fallacy, which is you spend some money, so you keep going down that route, even though it might not be the right course of action. But he's also focusing on one variable, which is dollars, right? It's cheaper. It is cheaper. But my interest is in trying to minimize the impacts of the families of the people here in our South Bay. And that's over, again, maybe the next 100 years. So a little simple policy research on the part of my wife and me on the noise and vibration. We looked at the row. We said, look, 350 feet from either side of the row, how many families does that touch in the row versus on Hawthorne? And the answer is it's about 1,624 families if you go down the row on either side of it. And that includes 191 seniors in the Redondo Breakwater Village and about 100 in Torrance seniors in Torrance's Harmony Court Senior Housing. So 291 seniors. Hawthorne route is a win-win-win for for Torrance, for Lawndale, and for Redondo, saved 1,006 families from any of those impacts, and all 291 of those seniors are not going to be impacted. So the board of directors is going to vote on the locally preferred alternative for the route. We, the locals, believe that the alternative should be Hawthorne Boulevard, and that's to minimize the effects on our families over the next 100 years. So please use that route, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Matt. Kim, Gillen?
Thanks for your time and attention. I'm Kim Gillen, local homeowner here. My husband's a firefighter. So everybody's touched on everything. I'm not going to waste your time, but or ruin your meal here. Everything looks lovely over there. I'm just going to bullet list everything. There's federal and state laws protecting the wildlife. There's blue herons, there's owls that live all along these trees on the tracks, and they're protected. Recently, there was a law in Hermosa Beach where one of the homeowners, you probably saw this on Google, they kept the trees, wanted to tear them down. They had nests, owl nests, but they are protected. So this is a big issue with the train going down Row. I'm really against Row. I want it to go down Hawthorne. Metro is supposed to be about community. This is going with communities, having it go down Hawthorne. We've got pipelines everywhere along Row. There's derailments happening. Emergency services such as my husband, a firefighter, paramedic. You can't go down 182nd, which is where all the firefighters go, because you're going to be blocked from the Row, from the train going by. So there's a lot more negatives and positives, a lot, especially with safety. I'm sure I don't need to mention the gravestone that was just found of the Jewish veteran, which just breaks my heart. So there's just tons of negatives. It's crazy we're still talking about this. So I'm for it going down Hawthorne. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Kim. John Trevor?
I'm John Schreiber. Those are my kids and my wife as well. I'm not going to go over the reasons why I support Hawthorne over the Row because everybody said it better than I. And I was all ready to come in here and supervisor, why haven't you scheduled any community meetings? And then I opened the agenda packet and there's this. So I thank you for scheduling this community walk, and I hope that everybody comes to it. But I think this is critically important that you're having it right in their neighborhood. All the neighbors can come, the people affected, and they can go on the walk. So thank you for scheduling that. And I know that's what you wanted to do when you delayed the vote on it. This is a good first step. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me just say that's the community walk, and then we're gonna do the community meeting in
Okay.
January.
Perfect. Thank you. And I was gonna, you're like, why haven't you scheduled anything yet? But you did, so thank you.
There's a flyer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Out there on the table, but online too. I just thought today because I opened up the agenda packet for the meeting, but you guys as a whole body, I really encourage you to bring this up and actually take a vote on this. I know Councilmember Abaji has brought this up multiple times at this meeting, asking you guys to pick the locally because I think the voice of this body is important, and I think you guys can sit down and actually go through this and pick an alternative. It's been months and months and months. You guys haven't picked anything. You've heard from us multiple meetings, so why not bring this up for everyone? Why not go over the alternatives? Why not take public comment? And why not, as you guys as a COG, vote on this? That's my ask of you guys.
What's the agenda?
EPG?
As long as slightly over 2 minutes, but hang in
I won't cut you off.
there. Yeah, I heard about this amazing plan. And I've got to say, I'm not a fan. I was sending hundreds of trains a day through a quiet. Well, it may seem like they've been done to keep the sea lice costs down, but the cost to our quality of life here, so right of way, it's just not. If the sea line gets built on the right of way, it'll mess up a lot of people's lives. Hey, if they go ahead and build that on the right of way, it'll seem Metro just doesn't care. So let not build it, go ahead and build it on the right of way, with all these people saying it's the wrong way. They should look around and try to find a better way that wouldn't be so hard for us to bear. With these, we can go on the tracks will be just feet away from homes where people live and children play. Bringing noise and rumbling every hour of the day and disturbance without cease. While just 3 blocks away is an 8-lane street designed to be just right for mass transit need. That will serve all the people so much better than this road route that'll leave us no peace. If the sea line is built on the right of way, it'll endanger lots of people's lives. Stay. If they go ahead and build it on the right of way, it'll seem Metro just doesn't care. So let's not build the sea line on the right of way. Just listen to what so many folks who live there say. And let's build it the actual right out of way down Hawthorne Boulevard.
Okay, we thank you for your public comment and we thank you for your passion for the issue, and we're gonna move on with our meeting. Thank you very much. Becky,
Consent calendar?
consent calendar, everybody had a chance? I hear a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion,
Second.
second, I have a second, all the, are you gonna do?
Segura. Second.
Any opposition? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
And next, we have a 2-minute video we want to show you. We had a really fun and meaningful, I think, dinner for our volunteers. And so if we can cue up the volunteer video, we wanted to, we usually do it here at the board meeting, but this year we're so chock full, we wanted to just show you snippets. So, and Colleen once again did this video, another great job by Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen.
Where is it?
I'm putting it there. Share the sound.
Been inspired by all the state of the city videos, you see. You don't have sound? You don't have any sound. either.
I think you're.
You also don't have the full screen. Don't you have the sound?
I'm trying to.
Can you stop it then?
Yep.
No, we don't have the sound. I don't know what's happening. This is a tribute to all of the volunteers and what they've done.
Are you guys hearing it or?
Can't hear this. And if we can figure it out, play it in a little bit. Okay?
Okay,
Why don't we-
Jackie, yeah, it was a great event. And it's like we told everybody, you can't do everything by yourself. The volunteers are an added resource that really do a lot for us. A couple of people had 130 hours of volunteer time. So, it just makes us all look better. So we thank our volunteers. Okay, so we know that Supervisor Mitchell has to run to another one. So real fast, Supervisor Holly Mitchell currently serves on the LA County Board of Supervisors, and she is the daughter of parents who are public servants and I think it's third generation Angelinos. Ms. Mitchell leads with a deep understanding of the vital safety net LA County provides to millions of families and is committed to assuring that all residents can thrive. Since being elected the Board of Supervisors in November 2020, Supervisor Mitchell has made poverty alleviation a countywide priority and has anchored an equitable recovery plan for the health and economic pandemic caused by COVID. Supervisor Mitchell, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Jackie, it's good to see you. When I saw you, I think the last time I came to South Bay COG, I was still in the state legislature. And I was chair of the Senate Budget Committee, and I would come, I think, once a year and kind of give you an update on what was in the state budget. So it feels like a lifetime ago, even though it wasn't. I was watching the national news last night, and I thought about coming here and just wanted to say to you all, if you haven't had a constituent thank you today for your service, let me thank you on their behalf. Because you all in local government, we all show up every day. To do the heavy lift, particularly following COVID. And I am thrilled since 2020 to have joined you all in local government, but you all are doing the work around housing, around safety, around the environment, around transit. And so while it feels a little to me, maybe not everybody, that the earth is sort of off axis a little bit, again, I want to thank you all for showing up and continuing to do your work, because it's not easy, and I certainly know that. I was just going to touch very high level on some of the things that we're working on that I think would be relevant to you based on the communities you represent. But let me start with what I walked in on, and that's the sea line. For those of you around the table, I asked that a vote be delayed at Metro in October. It is not my sense that Metro has done the kind of community engagement and conversation that I think is appropriate for any infrastructure development. I didn't think they'd done enough. So that was done. And I asked Metro to partner with my office to do a couple things. To do a walk, everybody shows up. I have been there. I have walked the row. I have done it when I didn't tell people I was coming because I wanted to see what I wanted to see. And so I've been there a couple times. My staff has done meetings with row residents, and they've done that piece. But all of us can show up December 16th. Somebody asked, there's flyers on the table. So take a picture. Take one and share it. We're also going to do a community meeting, which will be at the top of the year. We just got a location, so we'll be working on a date. We're going to try to make that happen in January. Secondly, I'm asking COG members to consider, the issue is that there is a financial difference. It is, as it is currently scored by Metro staff, $1 billion difference. So, I'm the budget lady from the state legislature. So I've sent letters to Department of Finance, Governor, and our federal colleagues to talk about this option and for them to help us identify additional resources. We've sent the letters already because I know time is ticking for the state legislature. The governor releases his budget January 10th. We have copies. Would love for you all to either send similar letters, sign on to this one, however you do it. But I wanted you to see the letters that we sent, who we sent them to, our U.S. senators, and again, finance and the governor. And would encourage you to consider doing the same thing. This is my rather multi-pronged kind of strategy to slow up the decision-making and to engage in additional conversation. And I'm not naive enough to think that whatever ultimately comes before Metro and the Metro board votes on may not meet everyone's needs. I'm not suggesting that we slow this up to make everybody happy. I did think it was important to slow it up, to continue the conversation, to attempt to address some of the consistent issues I hear from members of the public who come to Metro meetings. I thought that was important. So I see I'm being recorded. This is the consistent message I gave at Metro. I give it everywhere I am. So it's not anything different than you'll hear me say at Metro or here. but really want to make sure that COG members have the opportunity to consider signing on to this letter. So we can perhaps, knock on some wood, remove the financial incentive, if you will, to consider the road over Hawthorne Boulevard. With that, there are a number of issues that we are currently working with a number of you on. I serve this year under the chairwomanship of Supervisor Hahn. I am the board rep on AQMD. So there have been a number of issues that we have worked on that have direct impact on this community. I have the privilege of chairing the First Five Commission. If you don't know my background, I came out of nonprofit executive management. I was the CEO of the largest child development agency in the country at that time, Crystal Stairs. So I'm really glad to spend some time, particularly post-COVID, given what our youngest constituents experienced in COVID, given the impact COVID had in our organized child development and child care infrastructure, decimated. We lost thousands of child care slots in LA County and across the state. And so First Five is really figuring out ways in which we can engage to support the 0 to 5 constituents. And so I'm proud to serve there. I'm on LAFCO. Had to think about it for a minute. AQMD, Metro, First Five Chair, LAFCO. These are indeed full-time jobs, are they not? We work a lot. I want to make sure everybody here knows, imagine, if you will, I won the election, took office December 2020 in the middle of pandemic, had to onboard with remote board meetings, hire a staff that I didn't even get to see in person for maybe 3 months. And with all of that, this is the most dynamic team I've ever had the privilege of leading in my entire career. So I want to make sure you all know Ara An, who covers Gardena, Hawthorne, Lawndale, unincorporated communities of Del Air, El Camino Village, and Wiseburn. You got fans here, Ara. Jesslyn serves the new areas of the 2nd District, our coastal communities, the Marina, Playa del Rey, El Segundo, Manhattan, Hermosa, and Redondo Beach. Jesslyn Wade. Alfonso, who covers Lenox, Inglewood, and South LA west of the 110. Yay. April Johnson, who's not here, who covers West Carson. And this is my team at the constituent services level. They should be your primary, really kind of points of contact in those geographic areas. The way we have built our team, my team works in pods. So I have policy deputies who work collaboratively with my constituent services deputies, because there is no policy issue that doesn't have community impact. And there's no community issue that doesn't have policy impact. So they work in very close collaboration to really make sure that we are aware, hearing your concerns, and doing the best we can to represent you as members, residents of the 2nd Supervisorial District. I tell people all the time, there's 2 million of you all and 1 of me. And I'm good, but I'm not that good.
Right.
As I get older. And so my team members are they help me keep my finger on the pulse of the community, and they share my core values of service and constituent service. And I'm very fortunate that they have chosen to come work for me, and I want to make sure you all get to know them. I left another major new job I took on, La Casa. I always get the acronym wrong. What does La Casa stand for? It's our new regional housing entity, the LA County Affordable Housing Solutions Agency. I am chair of the inaugural year of the La Casa Board, an important entity that's coming on the heels of now Congresswoman Cam Longer. It was a bill she carried in the state legislature when she was in the Senate. That's going to create opportunity for us to address the piece that is a critical element if we're going to truly house the tens of thousands of unhoused family, friends, and neighbors. And that is a way in which I willfully and intentionally refer to our unhoused, because that's who they are. They are Angelinos, and they are our family, friends, and neighbors. And La Casa really focuses on 3 principles, the 3 Ps. Protection of tenants, preservation of the existing affordable housing stock. We can't afford to lose a single affordable housing unit. We don't have enough. And production, that's the critical element. So while, LASA is working to house our currently in-house, La Casa is working on the infrastructure to make sure that on a regional level, we are working on the production side. You all know the numbers, 500,000 housing units short across LA County. And we at the county have pushed and worked and collaborated with many of the cities, the 88 that call LA County home, to figure out what we build for whom and where. And it's my opinion at the county level that it's going to take a regional strategy for us to house those who need it. And all of us have to do our fair share in making sure that we are building that housing. So La Casa is a new entity. I hope that you will pay close attention. We are hoping through an initiative that is currently being circulated, the Citizens Initiative, that will look at, bringing additional resources to not only services, county side is services for the unhoused, but also additional resources that will fund La Casa to allow us to build. So I'm looking forward to that work. Coastal resiliency, an issue that I addressed at the board because the top 3 most impacted beaches in the county are in the 2nd district. And so we're working collaboratively with Beaches and Harbors to really begin to figure out how we solve this infrastructure problem, both in the short and also the long term. We're working hard to really incorporate theories around coastal access to make sure that our LA County beaches are accessible to every resident of LA County, whether you live in a coastal community or not, because they are our public asset, and we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity. Worked closely, and thank you to the South Bay Coalition Against Hate. We've done some collaborative work together. As I just talked about, it feels some days like the earth is off its axis. And so again, working with my own Racial Justice Learning Exchange and coalitions like this, both in the South Bay and across the county, to really elevate issues of hate and create opportunity for shared values, shared learning, so every resident of LA County can feel safe in their own home county. Let's see, I talked about La Casa. We've talked about the Metro line, Measure C. You're all going to help me get some money from the federal government and the state legislature. I think the last piece I'll talk about is justice, kind of generically. You all have heard and know that LA County made a commitment long before I joined the board to be a care first, jails last county. We know that voters overwhelmingly passed Measure J a number of years ago to really talk about how we build an appropriate criminal justice infrastructure. And I say appropriate because, to hear multiple sheriffs, the last 3 sheriffs, talk about the fact that LA County Men's Central Jail was the largest mental health facility in the country is problematic. It wasn't built to be a mental health facility. It doesn't serve the needs of people suffering from mental illness in any form or fashion. And so the board, long before I joined, agreed to close Men's Central Jail. And we are building up the community-based infrastructure that will more appropriately meet the needs of the people who are there. And we stood up some new county departments, our JCOG, Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department. We've stood up a new youth development department where we're going upstream. We're not waiting for youth to fall victim to either our child welfare services or our juvenile justice system before government intervenes to provide support. We're going upstream. You heard in my introduction, I focused really my entire elected career on poverty alleviation, because when we look at root causes of many instances, crime, interest into the juvenile justice system, interest into the foster care system, it's driven by poverty. And so, Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. So since we know this to be true, since we've been able to pilot so many programs as a result of COVID and the federal dollars that became available in our recovery efforts as a local government, we want to continue to develop these new programs that provide supports to our shared constituents in a meaningful way to keep them out of the carceral system. And so JCOT is a new department. Our youth development department is new. I'm really excited about the opportunity in the future for LA County. And I have to say, even though some days I feel like the earth is off its axis and I'm tilting too, I have to say, as a public servant, my entire work life, I feel deeply optimistic. I feel deeply optimistic because I see alignment with those of you I've worked with. I have a quarterly meeting with all the mayors of 12 cities I represent. We work very closely with the 19 unincorporated communities that are in the 2nd District. I feel alignment with many of my colleagues at the state legislature. I think that we are all locking arms to really lean in. We have kicked the proverbial can down the road too long, and all of our backs are against the wall. And so to address head on many of these systemic issues, I think is happening in a meaningful and powerful way, which gives me a sense of optimism. It allows me to get up every day to talk about how we're going to close the digital divide in a meaningful way across LA County, work that you all have done early, but I'm working hard in South LA, where we still have too many households who can't afford internet access. So I'll stop there. Mr. Vice Chair, you all please, when you see the chairman, thank him so much for extending the invitation to me. Again, Jackie, it's a pleasure to be here again. And I'm happy to field questions. Mr. Chair, I will follow your lead.
Thank you, Supervisor. We'll take 2 or 3 real quick questions. So if anybody has a question
Not from the audience, from the table.
from the board members.
I don't have a comment. I mean, I don't have a question. I have a comment. I just want to thank you for your leadership. Some of the agendas on your platform are very meaningful and right for change. And so I feel like we're lucky to have you at helm to be able to implement that change. And so I'm looking forward to supporting you.
I appreciate that.
As you move forward with some of these programs. You will have support from Inglewood.
Thank you.
It's important and I feel strongly about it. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good.
I also want to say thank you, Supervisor Mitchell, because on behalf of Redondo Beach, because of 2 things. First, by pushing the decision at Metro, you made us have an opportunity to realize what we could do to advocate for our residents and engage. And actually, just in our last city council meeting, I agendized preparing letters to our federal representatives and our state representatives for funding for Metro.
Thank you.
In addition, we just learned that the supervisor has secured about $800,000 for Redondo Beach to expand our pallet shelter program and over double its size because we're not going to make a bigger dent in homelessness in our community and continue to reduce the numbers unless we continue to get housing for those. And that's my district. So thank you so much for all you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for the motion and the letters. I'm gonna track everybody that they've heard from. So, thank you for that.
And we have one last question. Barry.
So a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week, we had the State of the District with the 4th District, that's the San Pedro Chamber, which is a great event. We had about 400 people there, I think. We'd love to have a similar event for 2nd District. So let us know who to talk to. We'll make that happen.
So tell me, so the COG hosts the State of the District?
No, the chambers did.
Oh, the chambers.
Yeah.
You know, we had a wonderful tour. Spent some time at Hall of Administration with the chambers of the 2nd and beyond. So I'm absolutely open to that.
That was the SBACC.
Yeah.
Which also meets right here.
Perfect. I would love to do that because we've done some serious work in support of small businesses in unincorporated communities. Everything from grants, we piloted a program. You know, gentrification is real among small businesses led by people of color. And so we piloted a program It's countywide. We piloted in Leimert Park to help some small businesses actually buy the building that they were in. And with a commitment that they will continue to make rents affordable for the small businesses who had rented there for many years and were about to be priced out of the market. So we've done a lot of work with our brand new Department of Economic Opportunity. So yeah, I'd love to do that.
Been very helpful, by the way.
They are excellent and we are supporting her meaningfully.
Thank you.
We need to grow that department. She needs
Get
to
to
staff.
head that with her.
Sure.
Yeah, count me in.
Okay.
And we'll make sure Department of Economic Opportunity is there as well. So people can hear firsthand.
Supervisor, thank you so much for being here. We
Thank you for the opportunity.
We should say Supervisor, you know, you are a member of the board, so this is anytime.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to our next speaker. Los Angeles County Assessor Jeff Prang. He was elected in 2014 as the 27th assessor. He was reelected in 2018 and 2022. Raised in Michigan, he's a graduate of Michigan State. After that, he came to California, served 18 years as council member for the city of West Hollywood. He did 4 terms as mayor and other sector positions. 2014, when he took office as the assessor, he implemented the sweeping reforms to ensure the strictest ethical guidelines rooted in fairness, accuracy, and integrity, and that would be adhered to his office. And Assessor Prang is a State Board of Equalization licensed appraiser and administers the largest office of its kind in the nation, 1,400 employees, and provides foundation for a property tax system that generates 24 billion annually.
Thank you. Thank you very much, board members. It's nice to see so many friends here, and thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be able to follow my colleague from the county, Supervisor Mitchell, but I know that the reason you asked me to be here was to try to add a little bit of life and excitement in a way that could only be delivered by the county property tax assessor. I was told I was a second choice to the mosquito. However, just as a refresher, the assessor is one of 3 countywide officials. Everybody knows the other 2. Nobody knows this one. The other 2 are the sheriff and the DA. As Chair said, I run the largest property assessment agency in the United States. We've got about 1,400 employees. We're responsible for determining the value for over 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments. Together, these are valued at nearly $2 trillion. That's with a T. I did want to just say as a side, I don't know if you know this, but about 100 years ago plus, the assessor used to be compensated with a percentage of the assessment roll. I was thinking $2 trillion. Maybe 1%. Oh man! But didn't go wrong. It generates about $24 billion in property taxes, which is foundational to providing local government services. It's public education, municipal government, county government, and special districts all rely on the property tax system. While we are not, one of the things that I always like to emphasize is we are not a revenue department. I am not the guy who collects taxes. You're all getting your property tax bill. They do not come from me. The guy who collects property taxes has a very intuitive title. He's called the tax collector. And they're the ones who collect the taxes. We do the valuation. And the kind of way the system works is you purchase property, you record a deed with the registrar recorder, or you do new construction, you pull a permit with the city. The recorder and the cities send us those deeds and permits. We do the valuation of the property. We're then done. We turn the data over to the auditor controller. Auditor controller tells you what you owe and turns that data over to the treasurer tax collector, who sends out the bills and collects the payments. I'll tell you, about 80% of the phone calls that we get are people complaining about their tax bills and they're frustrated. Here's a trick. They'll call the county and they want to talk to the tax assessor. There is no such thing as a tax assessor. That's a conflation of 2 different departments. So if you want to talk to the tax assessor, you probably want to talk to the tax collector, but 100% of the time you're going to be referred to the assessor. Because the word assessor isn't there, and then we have to tell you got the wrong person, they're gonna be annoyed because you get the runaround, primarily because you don't know where to go. But that's the long and the short of how that very complex system works. The primary job of the assessor is the production of the annual assessment roll, which is essentially just the inventory of all the taxable property in the county. Obviously includes land and buildings, but it includes what we call business personal property, which is furniture, equipment, machinery, and fixtures. It also includes both commercial and general aviation aircraft, mobile homes, boats, and even racehorses. Property taxes, which are based on the values determined by my office, make up about 22% of the county general fund, or nearly $8.3 billion for county services. I always, in some ways, I always like to emphasize that in a lot of ways, my department is the most important local government agency, because no other agency can do their job until I've done mine. And if I don't do my job well and thoroughly, that means that assessed value, which turns into property taxes, is left on the table, and there's not enough money to pay for the things that we all rely on. Just give you a little bit of update about what's going on in the market. We completed the annual assessment roll at the end of June. We work on a fiscal year, June 1st till July 1st till June 30th. I can report that property values countywide grew at 5.91% this last year, kind of a 13th consecutive year of property value growth, and actually somewhat counterintuitive to what we would have been enduring with some of the economic impacts due to COVID. Actually, values have continued to go up all the way through COVID. The housing market, as you probably know, kind of went through a bit through the roof. Although we are anticipating that commercial office space is going to take a bit of a dip next year. To give you an idea of what's going on in your local market here in the South Bay, there's a table that gives you an idea of what the annual year-over-year growth was for a lot of the county, for all the cities in the South Bay, as well as a parcel count of homes, apartments, and commercial properties, as well as the entire assessed value. We're happy to make these slides available to you if this information is helpful. Another interesting market data point deals with the median sales price of a single family home, not including condominiums. Last August 2022, median sales price in the county peaked at $910,000. We did see a bit of a dip in that amount over the last 12 months. Doesn't really mean that the property values are going down. It's just a bit of a market correction. Property values are still higher than they were pre-COVID. The median sales price of a single-family home today in the county is about $890,000. And we have another chart which will show what those what the median sales prices in the South Bay. All those negative numbers, don't be alarmed by that. That's just kind of a bit of a correction from the hyperinflation during COVID. One of the issues we get asked a great deal about these days is affordable housing and ADUs. One of the great misconceptions is that I have something to do with housing policy. I don't have nothing to do with housing policy. We're just an administrative department. But we do know that there are administrative responsibilities based on a lot of the policies that are being adopted. Local government is responding to the housing challenge by passing more legislation to encourage multi-unit housing in residential areas, particularly ADUs. In our 2023 assessment roll, we have identified about 10,000 parcels that were coded as having an accessory dwelling unit. Senate Bill 9, which was, I'm sure you're all familiar with that. That's the one that essentially eliminated single-family home zoning in California. As a refresher, Senate Bill 9 allows any single-family residential lot to be divided into two and have up to 4 units divided on that property. This, as municipal officials, you have no authority to say no. Those are must-approve permits, and it's creating a increase in the number of applications for ADUs. Kind of as a companion to that, the governor just passed this past month another bill, Assembly Bill 1033, which will, if you divide your lot and build an ADU, you'll be able to separate those lots and essentially sell those units as something akin to a condominium. One of the big questions that comes up with ADUs though is what happens to your property tax, your assessed value. Anytime you do new construction on your property, the new construction is assessed at market value. We do not reassess the entire property, just the improvement. So if you got $1 million house and you build a $250,000 ADU, you will have a new assessed value of your property of $1,250,000, even if the new market value of that property is, for instance, $2 million. I guess I should just emphasize, we get, as the property tax bills are going out, people are seeing sometimes big spikes in the property tax. It's not your property tax that's going up, it's schools or transportation or sewer or something that's not related to your land and buildings. The only time the tax on your home and property will never increase more than 2% per year under Proposition 13, except under two circumstances. One is new construction, such as building an ADU, or if you change the deed. And adding somebody or deleting somebody, including a family member from a deed, is a reassessable change in ownership. A lot of people will do that thinking it's kind of a casual change, but in the eyes of the law, it is not. Another issue that I've talked about a lot the last couple of years is a ballot measure that was passed by the voters in 2020 called Proposition 19. If you don't remember what this is a measure that allows homeowners who are over 55 years of age, severely disabled, or the victim of a natural disaster such as a flood, fire, or earthquake. It allows you to sell your home and buy a new one without being reassessed. You can transfer your tax base. It allows you to transfer that anywhere in California to a home of any value, and you can transfer it up to 3 times. So it essentially makes once you buy a home, it makes your tax base portable. If you're married, you can transfer it 6 times, three for each spouse. It provides a great deal of benefit to those who qualify. One of the challenges in design that the authors had in designing Prop 19 is it will have a serious impact on revenue because all of your cities depend on property changing hands and being reassessed and keeping some increase in the amount of revenues that you'll generate. So the way that the authors of Prop 19 address that revenue issue is, forgive me if I'm rather crass about this, but they basically hosed family inheritance. So they slashed and burned your ability to inherit or pass on property to your children. So under the previous law, your children could inherit your home and it was not subject to reassessment. And if you owned other property, say a rental property, up to $1 million in additional property was exempted from reassessment. Under Prop 19, the only property that your children, in some cases your grandchildren, may inherit without reassessment is your primary residence. There's other provisions. In order for them to inherit that property without reassessment, they must occupy it within 1 year and file the homeowner's exemption. And there's actually a cap on that amount. So if the home is valued under $1 million, the children can inherit it without being reassessed. Over $1 million, there's going to be a new blended tax rate. You can inherit the rate under $1 million from your parents. Anything over $1 million will be assessed at market rate, and you'll get a new blended rate. The campaign was, in my view, was very disingenuous about this part. They did not talk about this component of it, and there's a lot of I'm dealing with a lot of angry people on this inheritance issue. I'm not normally on the same side as the folks at the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, but in this case, I am, and they are circulating a petition to repeal that inheritance portion of Prop 19.
Jeff, why did they put that provision in? I never understood.
It was a revenue thing because the California Association of Realtors first moved a measure like this back in 2018 that would have allowed you to transfer your tax base. A lot of public employees unions and municipalities, like the League of Cities, objected to that because it was going to have an impact on your revenues. So they needed to find the revenue stream. So the way that they did it was they dealt with inheritance. There was an issue that was legitimate. You may recall that episode with the family of Lloyd Bridges, who inherited that home in Malibu. And the kids were renting it out for, Jeff and Bo Bridges were renting it out for $20,000 a month, and they were paying, paying insignificant amount of property taxes. A lot of people thought that was inequitable. They're probably right, but Prop 19 closed those gaps for everybody. Most people are not rich people living on a beach in Malibu. Mostly it's a family home that's being transferred. And it's important to note, as I stated, the median sales price of a home in LA County is almost 900,000. There are more than 50 cities and communities in LA County where the median sales price is over $1 million. So that means that when you're inheriting property, you're going to be getting reassessed. If that's something the state wants to do, that's fine. But I think people should have had the ability to have an informed vote, to have that component of this measure understood in the campaign. And we all know that these state by ballot measures can be very confusing and in some cases deceiving to the public. I did want to pivot for a second, talk just briefly about something we call misfortune and calamity. This is impacted. This is what happens when there's a disaster, flood, fire, earthquake. If your property is damaged due to a natural disaster, if the damage is over $10,000, you could be entitled to temporary property tax relief. We just had this experience in Rolling Hills Estates where these homes slid down the hill. Obviously, they don't have any land and their homes are unlivable. So these were valuable pieces of property that paid a pretty big chunk of money in property taxes, but we have lowered those assessments down to virtually zero and providing tax relief to those property owners. But we do the same sort of proactive work when there's during fire season as well. Two last things before I wrap up. My office, while we are not a revenue department, we do manage a number of programs to help save money on property taxes. Probably the most accessible one is one called the homeowners exemption. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before. Homeowners exemption allows anybody who owns their home and occupies it as of January 1st to file for the homeowners exemption. It allowed me to reduce the assessed value by $7,000, saves homeowners about $70 a year on their property taxes. Not a huge savings, but we estimate that about 1/3 of all of your residents who qualify for this exemption don't apply, and they don't apply because they don't know about it. So hopefully you can help me share the news and help some of your homeowners save a little bit of money. All the various programs that we managed to help save on property taxes, programs for seniors, veterans, nonprofits. Last year, we helped them save about $724 million. We have a program I'm particularly proud of. We just launched is something we call the Assessor's e-Service account. You can now register a personal account with your property online. It'll allow you to take care of a lot of functions that used to have to be done with paper, such as a change of mailing address, and all online. Importantly, it is the platform for a really important program we call the Homeowner Alert. As you know, that there's a lot of examples of people committing fraud, real estate fraud against property, sometimes filing deeds against property. If somebody's attempting to commit fraud against your property, the current way that you would know that is insufficient. If somebody records a deed or a grant deed or a lien against your property, the way it had worked previously as a registrar recorder would send you a letter within 30 to 45 days indicating that something had been recorded against the deed. But if somebody's attempting to commit fraud, that could be too late. So now all property owners have the ability to register their email address, do that on the website from my office. And anytime something is touches your property, you'll get an email within 48 hours, and that would give you time to respond if fraud is being committed. Either you can do it through these little QR codes. It's also on the front page of our website. I hope you will help me share that information with your constituents. The last thing has nothing to do with me, but it's a question that consumes a lot of our public service. People always want to get copies of their tax bill. The treasurer tax collector, who's a different person, different department, looks differently than me. Yes, however, he is now putting tax bills online. You can now get a copy of your tax bill on his website, and they put 2 years of tax bills on now, and each year they'll add more. So you'll go get historic tax bills in future years. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here to visit with you today. Hope this information was useful. Happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
For Rolling Hills Estates, I want to thank you again for coming out and talking to the homeowners who are affected by the land movement event and giving them relief. It was really well received, obviously. And Supervisor Hans was fantastic there all the time. I appreciate all the support from the county.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other board member questions? Good. Bernadette?
Bernadette Suarez, City of Lawndale. I heard a presentation, I think it was a couple of years ago. Is there any thought to changing the homeowner exemption, increasing it?
It's determined by the legislature. And the last time they raised the homeowners exemption was, I think, in 1972. And so when the average home price at that time, I think, was around $40,000. And the $7,000 exemption was a meaningful savings, but they have not changed it. I've not had any success in finding a legislator who's willing to increase that. Last year, I did persuade Senator Bob Archuleta to introduce legislation which would allow veterans to claim the veterans exemption and the homeowners exemption, so at least to get a little bit more, but that wasn't able to get through the legislature either.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions from the board? Good.
So I noticed that my neighbors, when they list their properties for sale, they sit a little longer out there and then they end up cutting down the price a little bit, which could be a sign that the property price values are dropping due to the high interest rates. Is there any thought about potentially, reevaluating the property values downward in light of the high interest rates?
Yeah, well, so we do that. You can self-initiate that sort of review. We will do it automatically when there is a reduction, but here's where it gets tricky. You can get a reduction in your assessed value, but your market value has to fall below your assessed value. So here's probably in most cases in Redondo Beach, here's somebody, they bought a house in 1995 for $500,000. Then it went up to $2 million. And then COVID comes along or something happens, it loses value. Now it's worth $1.5 million. So in your mind, you've lost $500,000 in equity, but your assessed value is $500,000. So the only time we would reassess that value is if the value falls below the $500,000. So the change in market value may affect your equity, but it's the assessed value, which is more or less what you paid for it, plus the annual 2%. It has to. Believe it or not, we still have about 20,000 properties that are still undervalued from the last recession, but they're mostly up in the Antelope Valley, Lancaster, Palmdale area. Oh, by the way, I should mention, I don't know if you know this, but Redondo Union High School is performing in the state marching band championship on Saturday.
Your partner is a conductor, right?
Yes, we'll be there down in Long.
There you go. Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, anybody else? No? Jeff, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great information.
David is gonna try you have to run somewhere?
I'm gonna go to my office.
What? You're killing us.
That's some propaganda for you in those folders as well.
Thank you. Yeah, make sure you guys pick one up.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Sir, good job. Yeah, I take back the terrible things they said about.
So.
You wanna move to 8 or?
Yeah. Are you? Oh, here it goes. Okay. Let's see if this works. If this works, we'd like you to watch this video. Is it working? Start it, David.
Did anyone not get a phone?
Welcome to our volunteer recognition here at the SBCCOG. Currently, we have 15 active volunteers. Since 2008, we have had a total of 300 volunteers who have given over 20,000 hours of service.
So first, we would like to highlight two special volunteers who have worked 100+ hours at the center this year.
I'm very interested in sustainable energies, renewable energies, green energy. I'm a teacher for the Los Angeles Unified School District. I teach science and math, and these are things I teach my students on a daily basis. The SBCCOG gives me that opportunity to help others.
I believe it's important to give back to your community. If you're going to volunteer, also trying to find something that resonates with you. For me, it was working with the COG. They specialize on sustainability. It allowed me to help gather the information that's needed that will then update the climate action plans for each South Bay city that's part of the COG.
And having worked over 500 hours since the program began, please join me in recognizing Silver Sustainability Leader awardee Karen Conda.
I recognize most of you actually have worked not only at our Water Harvest Festival, but also our rainbow events throughout the year. And if I could just tell you one thing to let you know the impact that you've had. We've seen a significant decrease in water demand throughout our service area, but in these last few years, and especially since our partnership with the COG, we're at an all-time low. It's a community effort, and the South Bay Environmental Services Center has got us to the point where we've done that.
All of the awards that I received, the fact that this was all put together for all of the volunteers, it feels nice to be recognized.
It's a really lovely event. Yeah. We did a great job.
Okay, we're gonna move on to section 8. Jackie?
Okay, we've done, all year long, we've been doing reports for SCAG on our REAP projects. One has to do with ADUs and the other has to do with commercial redevelopment. And we want to give you a very brief summary tonight, which is not going to be terribly brief, but I mean, we want to give you the highlights because these reports are very, very important. And we're going to be on November 30th, we're going to be presenting them to your community development directors in much more detail so that they can understand more of what was learned. So Wally, somebody put up his presentation. Wally's going to do this presentation.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. I wish I were there. I enjoy speaking to you. Unfortunately, you've been sitting and people have been talking to you for a couple of hours. So, and this is worse. This is dense. Hopefully it'll be brief, but it is a little dense. So, right. Jackie's right. We've been working on this for about 1.5 years. With the REAP program, and we conducted some housing research. Go to the next slide. So really what this is about is your RENA compliance, your housing element, zoning ordinances, and especially perhaps your participation in the housing trust that is being discussed. So there were 2 projects. One was ADU acceleration, and the whole intent was to give you the tools that you could accelerate your ADU construction in your cities. The other is, to me, much more interesting, which is how to redevelop the commercial strips into sustainable housing. And so let's go on to the next slide. So REAP is this program, Regional Early Action Program, and the state put a lot of money into 250 million in REAP 1 with another 600 million coming. So that's almost $1 billion to provide technical resources to subregions and cities in order to reduce the barriers, whatever they might be locally, to getting large volumes of housing built and meet your RENA requirements. And especially through density. This is their thing. We got almost $500,000 for the 2 projects, ADU acceleration and commercial redevelopment. Go ahead. So this was completely voluntary. And I want to make clear, because anybody any city who joined doesn't commit you to do anything with ADUs, but it was to make yourself available for a study of what was going on in your community around ADUs. And so there were 4 coastal, 2 inland, and 2 on the peninsula. And Black and Veatch was the consultant that we chose in a competitive bid situation. Next slide. So what's interesting to me was that the program is designed to build no matter what. I was interested in what the outcomes are. So, okay, let's see, we do all those things. So what happens because of it? And the state narrative around this was that the cities are a problem, that they're the barrier to ADU development. And so I questioned whether that was the case or not. And would the housing density actually increase affordability? Are we bringing more affordable units onto the market? Did the ADUs deliver? And does the housing density through the ADUs reduce automobile travel? Because that's one of the pillars of the whole program as part of the state narrative. And then finally, of course, what, if you were interested, what city policies and practices can you adopt that actually will accelerate ADU development? And Black and Veatch did a bunch of different things. They looked at city ordinances, they reviewed the best practices statewide. We did a survey of occupants and owners. It wasn't a bad return. 11% of these things is considered actually good. And they did interviews with city staff. So it was pretty thorough investigation of these kind of questions. Next slide, please. So our city's a problem. So we asked the owners what they thought, and they said yes. 39% said permit fees, and 36% said the local approval process was slow. You know, what can you do? You have to cover your costs. But anyway, that's it. However, there weren't the only problems. The cost of construction, of course, is huge, both labor and materials. They had delays and cost overruns. There were site constraints that affected the design. There were construction challenges along the way. It's because as the narrative, our consultant made clear that this is a huge undertaking for people who, you know, most they've ever done is maybe remodel their kitchen, and here they are had to oversee and manage the construction of a habitable unit. So there's lots of problems with it besides the issues that city might have brought to the table. Okay, next slide. So are they affordable? Well, this is a quote from the Black and Veatch report. They seem to be rented at market rates or not rented out or used by their primary homeowner for personal use or to house visitors, friends and family. I think it was something like 35% were not even rented. They were used like for a home office or for relatives or something like that. And the more granular look at the rents they charge, there were zero really, extremely low or very low categories, income categories. There were some that were on the verge of meeting the low income threshold, and not even really the moderate income maximum. So it's just what they were saying is that these tend to be rented at market rates. So they're not really addressing what the state is using to justify it. Now, that doesn't mean they couldn't, but that means our survey showed that they didn't. Okay, next. Now, did they reduce auto dependence and travel as the density, as the supply side advocates say that you'll be closer to everything, and so you won't need autos and you'll take bus and stuff? Well, we had no evidence of shorter trips in the survey. 95% of the occupants own at least one car. Parking was an issue. There was on-site parking available only at 23% of the owners. Half of the occupants said that they had difficulty finding some level of difficulty finding on-street parking, which makes perfect sense. And very, very little transit ridership. So that answer also is it's not meeting the state goals. Now, the big part of the report is that they looked at best practices statewide, and there were 25 of them that they identified, and the process, public education policy, and equity affordability. One example is, let's provide electronic applications online and plan review online. And they evaluated each of these in terms of how complex it is to to adopt? And what is the impact? Is it substantial or not? They had another one, which I think is the right direction, but probably not really feasible, which is actually research and analyze the permit process and who's doing what. There is a big problem with a pipeline that many more permits are issued than ADUs actually constructed. I think the figure I recall was like 25% of those permits that are issued are actually built. So understanding that would be something that was good. I would think what we did, which was take a look at whether they're being rented, what they're being rented for, what the transportation load is from them, would be a good idea if you were to get some money going forward to do it. Obviously, this all costs money, and you don't have it or you'd be doing it. Okay, next. So in terms of the best practices in the South Bay, we didn't find any city had, and really none of the 25 that they identified. And the reason, of course, is that it costs money and you don't really have the staffing. And part of that is there's not a whole lot of planning professionals available on the job market now. We laugh a lot about the fact when you put all that much money, almost $1 billion of money coming, including the second year or second REAP 2, the consultant industries all got really fat. I mean, I can't imagine how many people are not working for a consultant at this point, because there's a lot of money going into that. So next slide. So, right. So SCAG has a tool that takes a look at what are so-called eligible parcels, which there are single family residential that's got space that you can actually build stuff. So the tool says there's 40,000 parcels in the South Bay that could potentially become at EDUs. But the Black and Veatch study said that even implementing the best practices, you could do better, but you're not going to get anything close to that based on at least historical trends and even with best practices. Okay, next slide. So in summary, you're really not the core barrier to ADU development, but you could be more active promoters of it if you adopted some of the best practices, and state funding would certainly help. So the issue, I think, a policy issue is, do you want to pursue these when you know they're not going to meet the underlying state goals? And you could, in fact, increase ADU production, but probably not to any extent. So last slide, go forward. So here's your options. Do you want to do it knowing that you're not going to get more affordability probably, and you're not going to reduce congestion and traffic and all that? So do you want to go into the expense of following best practices? This is a policy decision that you all have to make in your cities. I would think that the COG could work on this as well, is to lobby the state to get subsidies to capitalize some of this. Capitalize you and what you're costing you to do best practices, but also capitalize housing trusts and financial support and so forth. And the thing to remember at the end of it is that renter targets are renter targets. And so you have to meet them, and you should pursue other options like commercial strip development, redevelopment, which we'll talk about right now. But let's pause for just a minute and ask if there's any questions about the ADU part, because it's a whole different ball of wax than the.
Well, I got a question to Drew. What was the number of ADUs in the South Bay versus the 40,000 lots or whatever? What's the percent of available lots that have been developed?
Oh, we found, gosh, I forget the number, but it was like 50 or something like that. I mean, very small number.
Wait, what? No, like what percent of available lots have been that could build an ADU have actually built ADUs?
Right now, as of now, look, it's a new program, and so the answer is really, I mean, it's minuscule. Like what?
That's my point. Is I feel like the ADUs are going to continue to develop over time. Sometimes it might take a change of ownership, a life stage change. Like they're never going away once you build an ADU. No one's going to tear an ADU down, most likely, or I'd say it's very unlikely. So I don't think the adoption, the rate at which they've been built is necessarily slow or a bad thing. I don't know what the expectations were. But anyway, is there even a goal? What is the goal?
Well, see, we don't know because the state is just saying.
More.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that if they were doing this in order to get more affordable housing, they would at least be monitoring the price, the rental that's going up, but they're not. They're simply monitoring how many you get built.
Yeah.
So it seems a little disingenuous to me that the whole point of it isn't being monitored.
Well, that's the problem because they're taking it based on that. If we have more units available, then supposedly the market is going to go down in terms of the rent. But it is adding to all the bills that they've been passing. At least politically, that's what they're pushing for is more and more and more and more from ADUs to everything else. But we're not seeing it in the immediate, or I don't know if we might even see it in the future because there's different policies and different analysis that say they might not get to lower the rent so much.
Well, I mean, I think that's right. And I have a whole nother, at another time, I could go into the fact that housing isn't a commodity and therefore more supply of it doesn't drive the prices down.
Right.
If you have a bushel of potatoes and you have a bumper crop of potatoes, yes, the supply goes up and the price will come down. Housing is not a commodity. It's a differentiated good. And so you really.
The legislature that.
Yeah.
They don't believe it.
Yeah, we can't neglect the fact that for years we really have not produced sufficient housing for the number of people that we have. So, and with shrinking household sizes makes it worse. So I'm not saying that these ideas work. I think a lot of it's just wishful thinking, frankly.
One thing I want clarification on, Wally, years ago, you said that there was some study that you pointed to that suggested that there was 10 or 20%, I forget what the number was, more housing inventory stock than was required in LA County. I don't know how old.
Yeah, I remember, Drew, you have like a memory like an elephant. This is
I made the number up. I just remember the sentence.
You're a scary guy. I gotta be careful what I say. Yeah.
No, it would be good to revisit wherever that information came from, Wally, because the narrative is not that at all. It's that we need more housing, we need more housing, we need more housing.
Well, that's the new narrative, right? I personally, see, we don't need more housing. We need more affordable housing. It's about a price issue. And there's a lot of reasons why the housing on the market isn't affordable, having to do with corporate investment. It's become an asset class and you have big REITs coming in and buying this stuff. You have very, very high wage people working for Google in the so-called Silicon Beach area that make a ton of money and they can come in and buy, cash without financing anything. So there's a lot of variables to it. Yeah, sure. There might be, certainly locational wise, it would be good to get more housing. But if everybody wants to live on the list, let's say everybody wants to live in El Segundo, let's just say, then it's not going to work because there's a limited amount of land in El Segundo. It can handle at a certain density. And the problem is as density goes up, the pricing goes up because when the value of land increases because it's now worth more money because you can put more units on it. This defeats the purpose of having affordability. At the end of the day, if you want affordable housing, you either have to subsidize it from the state or you have to build on affordable land, which really doesn't exist in the South Bay. So that's the conundrum.
Very good. You probably should move on.
Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you, Wally.
That doesn't make sense.
Oh, and Drew, the exact quote was, there was more vacancies than there were homeless people in LA County at the time. And I think Ronson would know better today whether that's true or not, but I that was several years ago. You're amazing.
That 1%.
Okay, so the second project you want to talk about, I think, is really it's more complicated. And it's accelerating redevelopment of commercial parcels, specifically on commercial strips. And again, you had to volunteer to participate. There's nothing committed to anybody, but these cities, 4 Coastal, 2 Inland, said, yeah, gee, I want to know what parcels I've got. And however, it was done by this, people know me, know that I don't give out praise very often to consultants in particular. This team was fantastic. Studio 111, Dudek, and Cosmont. My God, it's some of the best consulting work I've ever seen. It was really, really impressive. And I was a consultant for many years before I joined the COG, so I'm particularly critical. Anyway, they did this in a way that anything we learned could be applied to the rest of the region, even for some of the cities that did not participate. Anyway, we had 6 cities. So next slide. So one of the guidelines here is that when you're redeveloping commercial property, you have to be careful you don't hurt the tax revenue. And I know I've heard from Jackie in informal conversations with some of the city managers, they're really concerned because they don't want to lose tax revenue. And fair enough, we don't want to do that. And there's also, we ran into situations where there were very valued businesses in some of these places that you don't want to, they might be developable, but you don't want to lose that business presence. And a lot of them are mom and pop businesses that have been around for a long time. So redeveloping commercial, you have to be doing sort of surgically. And then that gets to the fact that you want these to be, quote, sustainable, which means that they're not going to generate a lot of greenhouse gases going forward, because as everybody knows, we have to cut the greenhouse gas emissions by half in the next 5 or 6 years. So you can't be adding to them. I did a whole separate paper on that, which we won't talk about tonight. Anyway, and you want to move from wheels to wires. So having things on the local travel network and on the South Bay Fiber Network is a really good idea. We're calling these complete neighborhoods. SCAG presentation tonight referred to that as 15-minute cities. I don't like that term, but complete neighborhoods is what we use. Okay, next slide. So these consultants did 3 things: economic analysis. They did a hypothetical project design with incredible drawings. I mean, if you ever want a thrill, they really read this report. There's some great graphics in it. It's really well presented. And in the end, they did a financial analysis that tells really whether the thing is feasible or not. Next slide. So they had 5 recommendations. I'll burn through them really quickly. It is physically possible to develop underutilized commercial buildings. That doesn't mean it's financially possible or economically a good idea, but it's physically possible to do so. And again, it gets back to the complete neighborhoods business. You want zero emission mobility, but you also want it so you don't have to have a lot of parking, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And you want it to be, in general, you want the development of this new housing to be in an already kind of dense area. So not to call anybody out or anything, but downtown Torrance would be a good idea. Downtown Hermosa Beach, where Pier Avenue hits the ocean. Those are places where there's an awful lot of businesses already. And that's where you want to put your housing, because you get your walking, you get your cycling, you get your e-bikes, you can get the ATVs and that kind of thing. Okay, next slide. So a good thing to look at is the surface parking lots for a couple of reasons. Surface parking lot means that you're not going to lose any, not much anyway, tax base, and you're not going to lose any community businesses. So you can add housing without losing anything. And that's really important. And it was really important to some cities that we looked at. But it also means you want to take a look at, if you're going to do that, since you're going to lose parking supply, you might want to start looking at parking innovations like shared parking and the sustainable mobility options that reduce demand for that full-size automobile parking, like walking, biking, neighborhood electric vehicles, and so forth. Gets back to El Segundo and our pilot project in the local travel network. Okay, next. Okay, this is 3 of 5. The economics obviously limits the housing development, and if you really build high density projects, it's not really going to solve the problem of affordability by itself. The issue is it's the cost of acquiring land that is going to drive the affordability of it all. And this is a quote. Both of these are quotes from their report. Density increases in residential areas may serve to increase the supply of market rate housing with minimal impact on affordable housing. This is the top economist around, Larry Cosmont. We've known him for years. I'm sure he's worked for many of you. This is a nail in the coffin of let's build more density, sort of. Let's go on to the next one. So they say, again, a direct quote, the market alone is not going to reach RENA's affordable housing target. The thing is, we used to have redevelopment law until Governor Brown closed that out, and that was a major tool. Now what you've got is inclusionary zoning or density bonuses. And look, they're saying those alone are not going to produce the 21,000 RENA target for affordable housing units in South Bay cities. And really important, I put it in bright red because it stunned me. To meet the very low, and moderate, you're going to need $2 to $3 billion of investment to do it. And you're not going to do that through inclusionary zoning. In fact, the density bonuses are just not an effective way to do this. I mean, it won't work. It just simply won't work. And so it's the only tool you got. And the state is hanging over with enforcing the RENA targets, but it's not going to work. And here's our top economist telling us that. Okay, last one, go forward. So we also looked at the carrying capacity of the infrastructure. And water and sewer, the water supply is another issue, I think, but the infrastructure is what they looked at. And the thing was, maybe there's a problem with sewer capacity. It should be monitored as you start building more. It's redeveloping commercial properties. But it did not look at the road and parking infrastructure. And I've done that separately. And as I said, I won't talk about it tonight, but there's a tremendous increase in motor vehicles using the same standards that we know through our own research that we've had so far. Okay, next slide. So in the end, we've got REAP 2 coming up in 2024, and we are already been guaranteed funding to look at regional malls, big box sites, and gas stations. So stay tuned to all this. We're going to find out. And I personally think this is probably a more likely place to look at to get sustainable housing built. But anyway, that's where we're at. So happy to take any questions.
Well, before he takes questions, I just want to say what he did is he gave a report of our consultants. But if you have any questions or even disagreements, now's the time for you to say, well, I don't know that how did that happen? Challenge him.
I got one factor, while it doesn't seem to have been concluded, is the nuances in all 88 cities, or I'm sorry, 16 in the South Bay, the differences in where their property tax comes from. In El Segundo, for example, as I've said before, 98% of our general fund comes from business directly and indirectly, less than 2% from residential property tax because of the way Prop 13 was indexed. And we're at the bottom of the list, and there's some other cities with us. That wasn't taken into consideration. And so when we get these RENA numbers and they're telling us to convert existing commercial, and we're going to lose 98% of our base on that lot, unless there's some financial incentive in perpetuity from the developer, there's no way it's going to pencil for us ever. So always going to be a net loss.
They don't care about it penciling for the cities.
What's that?
They don't care about it penciling for the cities.
Exactly. That's my point. But it's another point. We're using a study that consultants have done to demonstrate that this will not work. This is another argument to suggest it will not work.
Well, right, Drew, and I agree. The issue was to take a look at the viability of, the tax impacts would be a whole nother study, and maybe we can add that. I don't know if we can in the upcoming 2024. But the whole idea was to give you a sense of what properties could actually be feasibly redeveloped, given market and given what the financial situation is. Not so that you would do it, but so that you understand what would be whether you could do it or not. I think the big issue is, I think Jackie was going to hand out, I wrote a paper in the most recent perspective.
Oh, if the newsletter has the back of the newsletter that's out there has a perspective from Wally about RENA, and I think you should all at least take it. It's a thoughtful piece. But the one thing I do want to say, and Drew, I think you're right about that's missing, but we have already, nobody's here from SCAG. We have already gone beyond what SCAG wanted. Got this funding. This funding was to show cities how they could build affordable housing. And we said to SCAG, sort of, we're not going to know the answer before we know the question. And so what we did is we studied and we came up with something that SCAG is not going to be happy with, because we're saying that you just don't want to go out there and build housing with all these rules that are out there. So when the developer when the consultant didn't go as far as we wanted, and we really pushed them, a lot of it was because that's not what the money was for. So I wanted to make sure I got that on the table.
Yeah, and I'm still on the recording too. That was brilliant.
Where can I find the report? I'm looking on the housing page and I don't,
Right-hand side, there's those green buttons.
No. The ADU acceleration final report.
And the other one is the commercial real estate.
Got
And the article says it's time to get rid of RENA because it's ridiculously out of step with what our problems are today. It dates all the way back to
Really had to
Governor
hire a
Reagan's first term.
Uh-huh.
It's like 60 years old. It makes no sense to be doing this, except that, one looks for, what's the real reason? Who's benefiting from all this? It's suspicious that the whole idea is about affordable housing and the state makes no effort to actually measure affordable.
Developers who fund political campaigns. Yeah.
I mean, the question is who benefits from all of this, and it's not the communities, so.
Developers.
Well,
The money is going to the legislators.
But I think it's way more complicated than.
Because the schools, the university systems
I
push
don't
this.
think it's much more
A
complicated.
lot of the planners that go through teaching, they teach them these same things. And of that, this is gonna because I know a couple of my friends are planners and they went through the schooling system and they teach them the same system. It's a lot of them is connected to the old school New York planning system that when they started building their stuff.
density is affordable.
Density is affordable.
Well,
And
I'm a
they think,
data,
they won.
I consider myself a data guy, and data tells stories, and so I just told the stories that the data told.
I know this because I've been passionate about this for a while.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wally.
Wally put in a lot of time on this.
Great
so-
work, Wally.
Nice.
See you all guys in person really soon.
Scared me.
Speaking to the choir. That's what I can tell.
Okay, we're almost done.
Thank you, Wally.
I just have a few more announcements. If you could put up Ronson couldn't be here tonight. There's 4 slides that I want to do really fast. I'll tell you right now. One's an invitation to, there's a link housing development that is gonna have, let's just go through this really fast. Next slide. This is the new measure that's gonna be on the ballot. We actually, they put a measure up on the ballot. It's to extend Proposition 8, repeals the current H and has no end date, no sunset clause at all. It's a simple majority instead of 2/3, and there was no transparency or coordination with at least councils of governments, and I think the League of Cities tried at the last minute to jump in. V knows a lot more than this. But anyway, it is on the ballot. It's going to increase sales taxes from 1/4 to 1/2 cents for Measure H and the new housing trust. And we still are waiting. I contacted City Selection Committee today to ask if they had a new date for the election for the Blue Ribbon Committee. And they don't have a new date. But as you know, Redondo Beach Council Member Cage Kalitarovic is running. And when I find the new date, I will send it out right away. We have plenty of time to take a position on this. And so we can bring this back next year. Next slide. Cities would get, out of this, cities would get 9%. Next slide. Right, so I want to move on. Okay, we're all invited to go to a link housing open house. We're actually going to be putting, this is in farther into Los Angeles than the South Bay. We are actually going to be housing residents from homeless people from Torrance, Hawthorne, and Redondo Beach. We're going to use some of our client aid funds to help them with security deposits so they can move in. And we'd like to give them something because they are taking South Bay people in this development. So we're looking at certificates to do that. And if anybody wants to go to this December 4th at 1:30, Keenan over here and Bronson will offer carpools. So we'd really love to have your participation if you're interested. Keenan, do you have anything to add to this at all?
I think about the head count I saw on post, at least 7 or 8 folks who've been working with for a while are getting moved into this facility.
Right, from the South Bay. Okay, next slide. I think that's the last slide. Is that the last slide? Okay, so that's what Ronson wanted to tell you about. Their transportation report, you heard from, the big thing that they talk about is the 10. We've all talked about the 10 on the news and everything. And then you heard Supervisor Mitchell talk about Metro. So we do not have Mike Volke here. He's left. The local travel network, we actually have a 4-minute video if you want to sit And here, see the local travel network opening, LTN, we got it from El Segundo today. Do you have it? Oh, you have to run to your office again. Okay, run to your office. While you're running to your office, there's
Maximize the video, please.
December 6th is the lunch that we're having to celebrate you. And we really would like people from cities to come, and we'd like elected officials. Right now, we have no one from El Segundo elected official, and you're getting an award. Gardena, we have no RSVP, and you're getting an award. You're gonna be there. Hermosa Beach, we have no elected official, and you're getting an award. Let's see. Alameda, we have no elected official, and you're getting an award. And Rolling Hills, we have no elected official, and you're getting an award. And Redondo Beach, we don't have an elected.
I'm a tentative, yes.
Didn't you say today?
Yeah, tentative.
Yeah, you sent it in today. Sorry. Okay. So, and then I wanted Colleen to stand up and give us a photo contest reminder.
Oh.
December 15th, we have the photo contest. Please help us publicize this.
Yes, sustainability in action photo contest. So please send photos showing what you're doing to improve the sustainability of your communities, whether that be planting a tree or replacing the grass, whatever it is. And we will be selecting the winner, and it will be announced at the General Assembly.
Okay, and once again, I mentioned Karen Conda with the party favors. Please take some. She's a really great volunteer. Our finance committee's meeting Monday at 11:30. And okay, so I just want to, came from the city of El Segundo. They did a fantastic job. It is absolutely wonderful to work with the city of El Segundo. So want to thank you, Drew, again. But have you seen this?
I saw Barry live.
I know.
I like that they cut out the screen so the children jumping out of the way.
We're here in downtown El Segundo for a groundbreaking event that's going to make local travel much easier and more efficient for the entire South Bay.
Scissors every time.
Oh, way.
One of the things that I just learned, though, is that we're the first city in the world to have a network of low emission, slow speed streets dedicated.
Usually I make stuff up.
This is a huge event for us. We have Assemblymember Al Marisucci here who presented us a $700,000 check for some charging stations. We're going to have these NEV charging stations, which is a simple 110 volts throughout town that people can use. Got a couple dedicated parking spots. So it's really the culmination of many years of work. The COG, the Council of Governments, has been working on that, and El Segundo has been a member of the COG for decades. They've been working on this project for 15 years. As the former chair of COG, I was working on it probably 4 or 5 years ago, so it's good to see this thing finally come to fruition. And as an NEV owner for a long time, I love it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here in El Segundo, the first city of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments local travel network. To bring out more zero emission, slow driving vehicles, whether it's the neighborhood electric vehicles that you see, your mayor Drew Boyle's like shooting around town, or your school board member Tracy Miller-Zarnicki, who helped champion this. It really highlights El Segundo's, not only small town leadership, punching above its weight and bringing neighborhood electric vehicles and other e-bikes and other ways to get around town for those short neighborhood trips.
This is really a proof that once the public sectors get together and they want something happen, they can easily make it happen very big. And this is a good example. The city has been working with COG, with the Assembly Member's Office. There was a lot that went on in planning this event, and I'm glad that it went out pretty well.
It is very important for a local travel network that we're able to do a low emissions or zero emission vehicles in the city. The environment is in danger, as most of us already know, and that for us to start the process now in the city of El Segundo is outstanding. With the leadership of the South Bay COG, along with all the 16 cities that are part of the COG, we are working towards rebuilding this network within the 16 cities, and now El Segundo is the first one to actually start that process.
So we're real excited to have the local travel network launched here in El Segundo. It's a South Bay initiative to bring people, to get people to actually use EVs or electric bikes or scooters, and to get actual people driving a little slower in town.
Scared for
She does look like she's.
I almost lost it.
We have Yeah, which is the
What's
part where you
beautiful about El
slow
Segundo
down.
is almost every street in El Segundo is a low speed street. So the reason you see all these turtle signs everywhere is to inform people that you need to slow down. Slow is the way to go in El Segundo.
I love having our golf cart. I love getting around in it. I don't think you need doors. I think that you need low emissions. I think that it's a great way to have kids jump in and out.
We just got our second one. We had our last one for a decade. They're low maintenance. They're super easy to charge. They're durable. Spray it off with a hose when you get back. I mean, we love it. We love it. It's a really good alternative because most of your driving for most people tends to be in a very small radius, and they're perfect for that. But eventually we're going to be able to connect the entire South Bay and ultimately maybe all of LA with this low speed network. So that's the long-term vision.
An event that's 15 years in the making was a success here in El Segundo, and we're definitely gonna see more of these guys driving around town. For El Segundo Media, I'm Aguirre De Leo.
Awesome. And the very last thing I have to say is that the next meeting is not a board meeting. It's a steering committee meeting on December 11th, but it has the authority of a board meeting. So please come because we need to have you there. It's going to have a lot of decisions that will be made at that steering committee meeting. And that concludes what we were going to.
Then is that a noon meeting?
It's a noon meeting. Yes.
Yeah,
it's
Monday.
noon at the steering committee meeting, and that has in December, but I checked the bylaws again. It has the authority of the board.
6 p.m.?
No,
noon.
noon, sorry.
The steering noon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, no, thank you, guys. Jude, thanks for a great state of the city. That was awesome. There was a lot of information that came out of that. It was good. I'm sorry I missed yours today, but
Me too.
I heard
I missed it.
I heard it was good.
It was very good.
I heard it was a really good.
I hope it was brilliant. Jackie was there.
So with that,
there. Alex.
we are actually on time, and we'll see you December the 11th at noon. Happy Thanksgiving.
And you
Don't forget leave.
want to do a day earlier, December 10th, in El Segundo.